As a kid, Sylvester Stallone was my hero. As an adult, Sylvester Stallone is still my hero. I talked about him extensively in my reviews on Rocky IV, Rocky V, Over the Top, Tango and Cash, and Judge Dredd. But as a kid, there was one time when I was watching a Stallone movie and I stopped and said, damn, I didn't like that.
Ho 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 ho, delightfully devilish, Seymour.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, the show where we discuss films that all at once meet the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jukebox Harry, and today we're going to be looking at a Sylvester Stallone cult classic that I just can't get behind. Cobra is a 1986 action film produced by both Warner Brothers and Cannon Films, the production company behind such movies as Over the Top, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and Masters of the Universe. This movie had a notoriously troubled production because it actually began when Sylvester Stallone signed on to play the leading role in, get this, Beverly Hills Cop. He wasn't a fan of the amount of comedy in the script, so he rewrote it, removing pretty much all the humor and upping the action quantity. The studio wasn't happy with that, so later he rewrote the script again, added in elements of the Paula Gosling novel Fair Game, and then submitted that. And that script would later become Cobra. Fair Game was later adapted again in the 1990s, and that film bombed hard and got remarkably low scores on Rotten Tomatoes from both critics and audiences. Like many Sylvester Stallone films, Cobra has gone on to amass a massive cult following, but as arguably one of Sylvester Stallone's biggest fans, I just could never get behind this one. So, today I really just gotta figure out why. Cobra starts off with some really dark and intense music, setting audiences up for a grim action thriller.
In America, there's a burglary every 11 seconds. An armed robbery every 65 seconds.
Oh, people can come up with statistics to prove anything can't. 40% of all people know that.
And 250 rapes a day.
Yep, and yet the court still insist on keeping Bill Cosby on the streets. The intro credits will give you a solid idea of the strange editing style in the film. A tremendous amount of footage was shot for Cobra and then randomly spliced into the film like a music video, only without the music part. It's like the editing style of Rocky IV, but a lot more senseless and convoluted. And all these shots of randos just clashing axes together. This is what the film confuses for character development. These are the villains of the film, but rather than really giving them anything to say, the filmmakers insist on having them just clash axes together and expects the audiences to understand everything about them based on that.
Bad idea.
The story begins with a very conspicuous guy walking into a grocery store, completely unable to close his mouth. You would think this character was the inspiration behind Val Kilmer's performance in Batman Forever. He starts opening fire on all the produce, allowing some moments of product placement before a SWAT team comes in.
You can go.
Then they ran away. Bang! Try to shoot him in the back.
So, what was the point of telling him he could go if you were only going to shoot him? I'm trying to understand the point of that.
Call the Cobra.
But you've got an entire SWAT team here to stop one guy with a shotgun. Why is that not enough? The Cobra rolls in with a number plate that says Awesome 50. That's not something a legitimate, serious action hero should have.
Any ID on the guy?
Just another asshole woke up hating the world.
You wouldn't be saying just another asshole if he wasn't white though, would you, officer? We get some of the most explicit product placement you have ever seen from both Pepsi and Coors. And some of the hostages randomly hang out in the aisles with the fridge doors open.
For the rest of the summer, we can live inside the refrigerator.
I don't know, maybe they need to chill out.
You wasted a kid for nothing. Now I think it's time to waste you.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't aggravate a guy who has proven that he has no problem actually wasting his hostages.
I got a bomb here.
When did that happen?
I'll blow this whole place up.
Go ahead. I don't shop here.
Take note, because the level of conviction that Stallone puts into that line is pretty consistent with the amount that he puts in with the rest of the film.
Jack Squat! I'm a hero. I'm a hero of the new world.
I bet QAnon looks up to this guy. He sounds a whole lot like them.
You're a disease, and I'm the cure.
I want to do a complete sidetrack and say that in 2016 I wrote a rap song which actually sampled that line.
You're John Wayne, well I'm John McClane. You're the World Trade Center, I'm a couple of planes. You got enemies, I got fewer. You're the disease, and I'm the cure.
I swear it's actually a decent song. Cobra hits him with a knife and opens fire, thus saving the day. Okay, this is a very strange red flag. After what was meant to be a very dark, gritty and intense intro, now we're playing an overly upbeat 80s song. That is a complete tonal U-turn. Cobra pushes a guy's car over and tears his shirt off, revealing a microphone. Is he meant to be wearing a wire for some reason? Or is that literally the actor's mic that Stallone just exposed and no one cut around that?
I don't know, but it's a bloody good question.
Our hero returns home, throwing his newspaper in the Weber, taking a pizza out of the freezer and then inexplicably cutting it in half.
He is so eccentric.
After a Toys R Us ad, the news reports another murder by the infamous night slasher, causing Cobra to remove his sunglasses in shock.
The method of death has been mainly silent instruments.
Silent? That doesn't sound right.
Relying on formula, Cobra's script likes to remind us that the protagonist is a cop who doesn't play by the bullshit rules.
As long as we have to play by these bullshit rules and the killer doesn't, we're gonna lose.
Then the night slasher commits another murder, but it's off screen. Cobra initially had a running time of 130 minutes and a whole lot more violence, but in an effort to secure an American R rating and to get it played in theaters more, they cut it down to 84 minutes. And they butchered a lot of the action and the violence in the process.
Well, that sucks.
Bridget Nielsen drives by, and although she doesn't actually see what the killers are doing, she locks sights with the Night Slasher, played by Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Oh god, that was a horrible film, but he was horrible in it. But I find it funny that Sylvester Stallone fought Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV. In Cobra, we're gonna see Sylvester Stallone fight the bad guy from Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And in Showdown in Little Tokyo, we saw Dolph Lundgren from Rocky IV fight Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. I don't know what this kind of crossover is, but it's a thing. Despite all of them literally being police officers, they made it a covert location in the city to offer the job to Cobra.
Try not to waste the wrong guy, huh? But then again, what do you care, right?
You know, when this is over, I like to celebrate by punching a hole in Monty's chest.
You know what the trouble with you is?
Well, he doesn't wash his hands before handling food, he's aggressively anti-abortion, and he peed all over Jerry Seinfeld's sofa. Yeah, this is Poppy from that episode of Seinfeld, and I couldn't disassociate the two. If this film was any good, then maybe I could.
Hey, that rhymes.
Apparently we're still in Rocky IV because the next scene plays out like an 80s music video. A whole bunch of shots of Stallone talking to people are muted while a song plays, intercut with shots of Nielsen's character being photographed. Weapons, graffiti, the Night Slasher, robots, and more. They obviously shot a lot of talkative scenes which were then hastily edited in the massive cuts this film underwent, removing a huge part of the narrative. And given that the editor on this film also worked on both Rocky IV and Over the Top, that completely makes sense.
Look, I'd be sick not to want to sleep with you. Okay, then don't do it for me, do it for your career.
Every single time characters speak in this film, you'll see that Sylvester Stallone put no creativity into writing the dialogue. Every single moment relies on excessive genre tropes. In writing this scene, he must have been like, okay, so the model, she's got an agent, but he's probably gonna try to bang her. I guess he's probably got to convey that to the audience somehow, and that makes him a bit of a bad guy. Maybe we kill him off. The Night Slasher comes back for Nielsen, but all they succeed in doing is pulling a Caitlyn Jenner on a security guard.
Buckle up, buckaroo!
Then she goes to the police.
I don't understand how this happened to me.
Well, if you guys came at you with an axe, I don't know what's confusing about that.
So in other words, in the last few weeks, there hasn't been anything, right? No threatening calls, no threats of any kind, huh?
There was this guy who scared me a little tonight.
Who?
Some guy broke down by the underpass. I just drove away.
Some guy scared you, and that is enough to trigger our hero's senses.
So what do you think?
It looks a little like him.
Looks more like Nightwolf from Mortal Kombat, not so much Shao Kahn. This song again? Come on, there are other songs in the world, people. Good ones. The killer comes to visit Nielsen in hospital.
You men are supposed to use the service elevator. Next time, use the stairs.
Fuck off.
Next time, take the stairs.
And again, fuck off.
Cobra also gets attacked in his home, and it displays some pretty atrocious editing. This is one of the worst fight scenes Stallone has ever been in, if not the worst. It's a rare thing when you'll see a Stallone movie where the editing butchers the action like this, but with all the dramatic shifts in camera angles and quick cuts, Cobra really takes the cake. The glowing Pepsi sign also doesn't help things. The Night Slasher stabs a bed, failing to realize that Nielsen isn't actually in the bed at the time. Then the film starts copying The Shining before Cobra aids her out of the building.
Now maybe you'll do it the right way.
Again, with the shallow, pretentious, predictable, routine police dialogue, and I just don't see it getting any better.
I understand what we're dealing with.
Do you? We're dealing with a literal interpretation of the rock band Axe.
Cobretti, do you know you have an attitude problem?
Yeah, but it's just a little one.
Yeah, and it's his attitude towards acting, because this is up there with Over the Top as one of Sylvester Stallone's absolute worst performances.
He's going to get me, isn't he?
No, he won't.
How can you say that? You said I'll be safe here.
Watching Stallone and Nielsen put in zero effort to attain any kind of actual chemistry, that can't help but make me wonder if they put in that degree of effort with their marriage as well.
We're going to a safe house. Want me to help you with this? My light?
Would you show a little emotion?
As everyone gets into their cars, we get another taste of the musical score, which of course is the same damn tone held out for a ridiculously long time. And there's no creativity or atmosphere that goes with it. There are very few films I've seen where the musical score is actually bad enough that it stands out, but Cobra is definitely up there, alongside The Legend of the Lone Ranger. Yet, for all the Golden Raspberry Award nominations this film got, it didn't earn one for Worst Musical Score. And considering they gave that to Rocky IV, which has the greatest soundtrack in movie history, in my opinion, fuck that. Then Cobra gives us what I can only describe as the most boring car chase scene ever put on screen. Sit down, the transporter refueled. The awful musical score goes away in this scene, meaning that it doesn't even try to have any atmosphere, as cars just lifelessly speed down streets and occasionally crash through things with no exhilaration or feeling of a genuine threat or any music to add mood to it. Characters open fire, but you'll barely ever see the bullets actually hit anything, and when they do, the bullet holes will disappear in the next shot. The cinematography never even tries to be creative in these scenes. It shouldn't be possible for a car chase to actually be this boring, but Cobra proves that through shoddy filmmaking, anything is possible. Also, a fair portion of the stunts have obviously been cut, so the cars will just jump between locations at random, causing a lot of continuity errors. Eventually, a very 80s musical theme does enter, but it's too little too late, and it doesn't add a thing. And it all ends with a crash.
Get down! Hey, now he emotes.
Everything comes to a close with a prolonged slow-motion collision.
Right, we got enough manpower here to handle it, so why can't we keep this under control?
Because you put all responsibility for this case on a guy who cuts his frozen pizza in half, rather than on a squad of law enforcement experts. But of course, since they couldn't even stop a simple convenience store robbery, well, maybe you made the right call. After an emotionless confrontation with the other cops, Cobra drives away from the scene with Nielsen in his car as the soundtrack turns excessively 80s again.
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
Cobra, like so many other police films, pretends to criticize the legal system for not putting criminals away, thus reinforcing the one-man army narrative that was so jingoistic in the 1980s.
We put him away, they let him out.
Makes me sick.
And even though I agree with it, because criminals like Kyle Rittenhouse, Brock Turner, and again Bill Cosby are still out on the streets, this is probably the laziest inclusion of that theme I've seen in any film. And then we get a Coke machine. Coke and Pepsi in the same film. That is a conflict of interest.
I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
Marion Cobretti. Is that really your name?
What kind of parent gives their kid a stupid cunt name like that?
It hopefully goes without saying that this is a reference to actor Marion Robert Morrison, also known as John Wayne. And action heroes always have names beginning with John, like John McClane, John Matrix, John Rambo, and John Connor. So, yeah, by calling him Marion Cobretti, that's this film's idea of a joke.
Gonzalez talks too much, doesn't he?
It's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Dear Slim, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling.
Again, just because we keep seeing more axes, it doesn't make them any more understandable or intimidating. We get another scene with the obligatory couple sharing no chemistry and no good dialogue, but an 80s love song is there to help pretend things are romantic.
Do you ever get involved?
With a woman.
Yeah, a woman.
A real woman.
A real woman.
Now and then, nothing regular.
Why?
In the original script, Cobra had a girlfriend who was murdered by a psychopathic serial killer, hence why he had such a relentless attachment to this case. If they kept that in the script, maybe there'd be some level of substance to the character.
But that's not the way it happened.
A biker gang begins to approach as Stallone loudly constructs his weapons, waking up Nielsen, who apparently sleeps with a beehive of a hairdo. After the real-life married couple display an absolute lack of chemistry, which no doubt led to their divorce, they kiss. Then the next day our villains approach for what seems like the longest time. Cobra opens fire on them, and it's remarkable just how little violence there is in this scene. Cobra had to be re-edited so many times just to get an American R rating, but there is so little actual violence in this scene, which would have been the case anyway. Nearly every time people get shot, it's obvious that no bullets are hitting them. There's just a whole bunch of people falling over unconvincingly or crashing their motorcycles. And unlike in Streets of Fire, where it was highly stylized in its ridiculousness, in a supposedly dead serious action film, it's just jarring. Cobra escapes in the back of a car driven by Nielsen as the film turns into the A-Team, with Stallone firing endlessly at motorcycles, all of which get hit without any signs of bullet impact as their drivers skid out of control. This scene really messed with me as a kid because I saw a whole lot of gunshots and a lot of people not actually getting hit. Eventually the two get out and run away to a nearby factory. There's a brief struggle, some gunshots, some explosions, yet never any excitement.
You have the right to remain silent.
At this point, I really shouldn't be surprised that this is the best the character could come up with. And yet I am. The villain delivers a final monologue, and let's count how many times he says the word pig.
Let's bleed, pig! Where are you, pig? I want your eyes, pig! You want to go to hell? I'm pig! We are the future!
No! Your history.
After an uninspiring chain-on knife fight, which Stallone would later replicate in the far superior film The Expendables 2, Cobra hangs the guy on a meat hook before sending him in to burn.
Burn, baby, burn!
Listen, can I get you anything?
Yeah. I would kill for some gummy bears.
Gummy bears.
It was a joke.
No hard feelings.
No feelings at all. After killing everyone in a supposedly dark and intense climax, Stallone rides off on an extremely cheerful and misplaced 80s song. I love that track, and I love John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. But again, the song shouldn't be here, it's woefully misplaced. The end. Is Cobra a good film?
No, not really.
The worst problem with Cobra is simply the fact that the film has no personality. Like its protagonist, who is a boring, empty, emotionless Hulk, Cobra is perhaps the most generic film in Stallone's entire career. If you look at many of Stallone's most critically panned films, even they have personality. Over the Top is a ridiculous mishmash of genres, but it's so ridiculous that it's occasionally hilarious. Tango and Cash is explosive and in your face and hilarious as a result, even if there are too many cooks in the kitchen. Even derivative films like Lock Up or Paradise Alley or Detox actually have original ideas. And even films as shit as Avenging Angelo still try to do their own thing. Now, Bullet to the Head came very close to being Stallone's most generic film, but that stayed true to the clear vision of director Walter Hill. With Cobra, you can tell that it really didn't turn out as the filmmakers intended. Cobra feels like someone asked a computer to analyze all the conventions of 80s police-themed action films and then asked it to write one on autopilot. It's a film about a cop who gets things done, but not in the right way. That is the plot of every single police movie ever, specifically the plot of Dirty Harry. That film contained actors Andrew Robinson and Rennie Santoni, both of whom actually came across into Cobra. But the 134-minute narrative in Cobra was then hampered by the editing stage to remove all the violence and cut it down to 84 minutes. And ironically, that's the same thing that happened to Rocky IV. And honestly, Cobra is what you get when you take the makers of Rocky IV and try to get them to make Dirty Harry. Because you get 2 actors from Dirty Harry and 2 actors from Rocky IV, as well as the latter's director, writer, editor, and some of the artists who contributed music to the soundtrack. You have a film which is trying to be a legitimately intense crime thriller cut to be an excessively 80s music video with no substance, character development, and a sole decent performance from the film's main villain. Ivan Drago was a way better villain than the Night Slasher, and Dolph Lundgren gave a better performance as the character. But in the final monologue Brian Thompson gave in this film, that poorly scripted final speech which repeatedly used the word pig ad nauseum, you can see a flare for villainy coming from the actor. And that would explain why he would later go on to play villains throughout most of his career, in good examples such as Star Trek and The Orville, and not so great examples such as in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. He's probably the lone actor in this film who really shines to any degree, even though he doesn't shine particularly bright. And the fact that his small contribution to this film is a wasted effort, it's really sad. A common story about Cobra is that Stallone dragged the production of this movie through the mud with his own egocentrism. Not only did he write the film, but apparently George B. Cosmatos was so uninvolved as a director that Stallone took on the reins. And even then, he spent most of the time showing off to his bodyguards and flirting with Bridget Nielsen, so production really didn't move along at any kind of smooth rate. And it really shows because Stallone seems too distracted to actually put any kind of effort in with his performance, resulting in one of the worst of his career. Almost at no point is there a flare of emotion in the character. A gun-toting badass referred to as Cobra should be a lot more intense and sharp, but Stallone put zero effort in with his performance. and the dialogue that he himself wrote has nothing to boast about. Some films will try to have character development, others will pretend to try to have character development. Cobra doesn't do either of them. Stallone himself referred to his protagonist as basically Bruce Springsteen with a badge. I don't think anyone walked away from this film thinking that. Cobra is just surprisingly underwhelming on every conceivable level. The villains are paper thin and completely misplaced in the story, as is the soundtrack with its excessively upbeat 80s tunes and lazy instrumental pieces. And with such poorly handled action scenes, it's hard to even enjoy this film on the level of a guilty pleasure. This isn't the police equivalent of Rocky IV. This is a testament to the failed marriage between Stallone and Nielsen, the latter of whom plays a lifeless damsel in distress that is easily the least likable character of the film just because of how boring she is. As a final note, I recently got this tattoo on my stomach, which many of my co-workers actually thought was a reference to this film Cobra, and I want to say that's not the case. Yes, I'm taking the excuse to flex it here, but no, it's not a reference to Cobra, and it's not a reference to Cobra Kai. This is a reference to Escape from New York and Escape from LA, the latter of which I will be talking about one day soon. Cobra gets 2 pigs out of 10. It is so reliant on genre tropes of the 1980s that it's almost a fascinating mess, but as a legitimate action thriller, it's one of the most boring things in Sylvester Stallone's filmography. And that does it for today's episode of Delightfully Devillish, you guys. For any movies you want to see me discuss on the show, please leave them in the comment section below. If you want to see more episodes of this show, please hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, until next time, I've been your host, Jukebox Harry. Peace.
We kill the weak, so the strong survive.